Steve
I'm pleased to take a call. I'm not an electoral expert. I'm not on the committee, but it sounds like a fascinating process and one that I think all MPs who participate in the House should take notice of, because this is the very reason that we end up here. But Labor will be supporting this bill. We were really initially concerned about the spending caps on third parties, but you've addressed that, National has addressed that in the first bill that we've just debated, so that concern has gone away for us. But one of the things that we are concerned about is just the chicken and egg about this referenda bill, and we think there should have been a review of MMP first before we go to the referenda. I am really concerned as we go out around schools and community groups, not just in election time, about the awareness or the lack of awareness that exists amongst many in our communities still about what we call civics literacy, just the understanding about the democratic process. And I don't think $5 million expenditure on a referenda about voting systems is going to assist raising awareness on the importance of the right New Zealanders have to vote. And I am aghast when we do go out door knocking, as we do as MPs, that people don't understand the current system. In fact, in the Mana by-election, it was really interesting when a lot of people said whether it was just to get rid of you at the door or not. I've already voted, thank you, dear, and you'd go, you can't have. The election, is in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And they'd go, but I've just voted. So they didn't even understand the difference between local government elections and general elections, this was a bit atypical in a by-election, but it showed the lack of awareness that exists, and I think we've got to start that amongst school children, and that's about civics and the curriculum and the value of civics. But I think 20 years, it's almost 20 years, if this referendum is going to be in the 2011 election, and we started this process of MMP in 92, 93, that's nearly 20 years, so it is a good time to look at it anyway. And it looks like the Select Committee have done a very good job in looking at this whole process. I'm pleased that there is a 300,000 limit here 3 months prior to the referendum, so that promoters just can't spend huge money, as we see in the American elections, pushing a line that they inevitably will take on which system of voting that they prefer. And New Zealand likes to pride itself on having a very clean process for elections, and I'll never forget going into Hillary Clinton's campaign headquarters when she was standing for the Senate, looking at the fundraising that went on in the American elections, whether it was for Democrats or Republicans, and being agog at the amount of money people were raising there for elections. I think in referenda, those that want to take a position, and that's democracy, which is valuable to us all, 300,000's about right. You could run a pretty good middle-of-the-road campaign with 300,000, so you're not really spending that huge amount of money to buy persuasion of New Zealanders. So we feel that's right, that those overrun with cash won't be the key influences here. So we support this. I'm a bit concerned that the Prime Minister's already stated a preference for supplementary member representation, because that's part of Peter Shirtcliffe's campaign that we saw only too well in the previous MMP referenda debacle, really. And by the Prime Minister going out as a leader of this country saying that's his preference, that's already beginning political persuasion, which I don't think is a good thing. I think the possible voting systems that are in the Schedule 2 of this bill, with MMP, first past the post, preferential vote, standard transferable vote and supplementary member, are very complex, as the chair of the committee said, and are going to take quite a lot of digestion by the community. I go back to Peter, my colleague Pete Hodgson, who is an expert in electoral systems and referenda, and his question about why are we doing this when the majority of people seem to be relatively happy with MMP, but saying there may need to be some tweaks. When I go around school groups in particular, I look at the representation that is in the House now with MMP, with diversity, more women, more ethnic representation, and we think that's a good thing. But there, of course, are improvements that we could have made on that system, so that's sort of where we sit. But great to have an open debate again on this, and I think it's timely. We support it. It's going to be interesting. I don't even think $5 million is actually going to educate the public, and I think we're going to get confusion again. I'm pleased to see that a lot of time was spent on the system, or looking at the voting paper, because last time it was ambiguous, it was confusing. People thought they'd voted one way and realised in effect they'd voted completely the opposite. So that's a very critical tool, and I'm glad a lot of time has been spent on that, because that's where the rubber's going to hit the road, as we're going to have that first before we do the review. So that's our position on this. 20 years goes by in quite a hurry, and it's great that this is going to be before the country again.
Call Catherine